Mike McConville here again for SternTech Workstations, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We've got two maple neck fenders in today, both American. I want to cover some details that pertain specifically how to handle and what to watch for when you're doing a maple neck fret dress, and the reasons why you would do a fret dress and the different types of fret dresses you would do. In this case, we have a brand new American Strat and a 12 or 13-year-old American Telly. Okay, first up is the Strat. Now I have masked this off like I detailed in that previous video with the David Gilmour EMG harness. I went into detail in that one exactly how you need to mask off a maple fingerboard before you go doing your fret dress. The truss rod has been backed right off. There's no tension on it. There's a few different sort of spots that we need to take care of on this brand new Strat. As you can see, the neck is supported. There's no steel poles up the back of the neck. The thing is not in a vise. I don't have a vise to get in the way of my work while I'm leveling and recrowning and polishing. I've gone through a series of straight edges to sort of get the lay of the neck perfect before we go anywhere near a file. Now those three straight edges, I went over the neck, they're fine. No ticking, no tipping, no high spots. But as I went down to the smaller straight edges, that's when we started to run into discrepancies. Okay, as always, I always start with a full-length fingerboard straight edge, and this has been loosened right off, and I can see there's a bit of space underneath here. So I'm going to adjust that, I'm going to tighten that up until that disappears. And there we go, there's our high spot right here. So I mark that high spot on the masking tape with pencil, not pen. And then there's another spot right here. So, and it's funny because it's only in the center of the fingerboard. So we've got two trouble spots so far that need to be addressed. Now as I drop down to a shorter straight edge again, we had this one we'd found initially, but now I've discovered another one and another one. These didn't show up with a longer straight edge. And this one here. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different spots. So let's drop down to a smaller straight edge again, see what we come up with. Okay, with this smaller straight edge, again, I've come up with another spot here, and right on the outside edge there, this under the first straight. So I've mapped out all the trouble spots. That was that very first one that we found. These are all spots where you see those dots on either side of the fret. You can see that this fret is actually high all the way across. A little spot here, it's fine on the bass side, just on the treble side. Here, it's in the center, and here it's just under the first string. Here, it's on this side of the neck, and here it's dead center. Both sides are fine, they're level, there's no clicking there, it's just in the center of the fret. That gives us our map that we're going to watch for when we go across the frets. And you've seen me level frets now in probably a couple of dozen videos, but I wanted to point this out because this was kind of a special case. It's a brand new guitar and there were sort of multiple spots that needed to be addressed. So we have located and leveled all of those various high spots all along the fingerboard of this maple neck Strat. Now we can go to our recrowning and polishing. This particular fret dress completely validates the necessity for removing the nut so that I can go clean through uninterrupted to level off all those various high spots. The neck is now perfect. The recrowning is done. We're going to go through the successive grades of sandpaper that you've seen me do in numerous other videos. We'll buff it out and then we'll fit that compensated nut and then finish up that self-adjusting radius gauge to match the fingerboard radius. Final intonation and she'll be done. And this is how myself, my students, Tech Deck workstation owners from around the world are doing this work. I do have to mention that the last Les Paul Classic that fella brought in that we put those ratio tuners on, I guess it had been gone over twice with the almighty CNC fret dressing machine. Missed it both times. We got it on the tech deck, nailed it. The guy's back flipping ecstatic now. The guitar, for the first time since he's owned it, plays perfectly. Just have a look at the cross-sectional profile of that straight edge. Take a good look at it. You think there's going to be any flex in that? Not a chance. Yeah, I buy those straight edges at the local surplus store. They're $12.95 Canadian. That's a meter long. I get 5 straight edges for 13 bucks. I'm very big on the vernacular, using stuff that's just lying around. The only dedicated tool is the Tech Deck Workstation, and that basically eliminates 95% of the specialty tools you'll ever need. I just go to the local hardware store for everything else. One more time. Fret dress perfection. Yes, I didn't pull the neck off the guitar to do the fret dress. I just strapped it down on the Tech Deck and got right down to it. Ultra precision, no fuss, no muss. Now that I'm done this job, I just jack up the body platform, puts that masking tape right at chest level, and I can peel that off effortlessly. Make sure you come back to watch that maple neck telly fret dress, because there's a couple of issues there with lacquer lifting, and I'm sure anyone who's done this type of work has seen the lacquer pull off with the tape. Now with this Strat added, I did test it beforehand with the tape. It was fine. The finish is on good and tight on this Strat. No need to do anything special, but that telly is another story. It's just another fret dressing technique that you need to understand. Make sure you don't go ripping that lacquer off, especially vintage instruments. Okay, now we're on the home stretch. Well, because we took that extra time to mask off that fingerboard properly, no smudge marks anywhere on that nice white maple fingerboard. I use this Finesse It 3M compound, liquid compound, just to sort of clean up the last little bit of gunk on that fingerboard. So I'm doing about a quarter of the fingerboard at a time. Cleaning off the fingerboard, no danger to the finish. And I'm actually doing that final buff on the frets. So a little dab will do you, just that compound. Like I said, I do it in quarters. I'm buffing the frets and the fingerboard at the same time. And then I dry cloth it and clean it right out. Like a mirror. You could literally see your face in those frets, and that's the way it should be. Perfectly leveled, perfectly crowned, and perfectly polished. Well, just like we did with the Les Paul compensated nut, same idea here with the Strat. I used the original nut that came out to get that string spacing right. Again, like the Les Paul, we've cut the rough values in. Now we're going to smooth it. Alright, here's our next step. The strings are now spaced evenly across the width of the nut. And now we'll start to hone them down to their final height. But before we do that, we need to finish all our work on the bridge, make up our radius gauge, so that when that is all done and the guitar is perfectly intonated, the very last step is to file those slots to their final depth. And this was masked off, taped off, no problem whatsoever. No lacquer pulled off, no issue. This guitar is 100%. Right, so here's some real trouble. This is a maple neck Stratocaster guitar, and the lacquer is just falling off in hunks. We are going to strip this right down, not doing a refret, and then Darcy's going to blow it in, and he will caramelize that lacquer to match the face of the headstock. So we're going to give you a play-by-play. Stick around. You want to see this. Now, the telltale sign, and when the red flag goes up, you see how that lacquer is blushing over the black dot. That tells you, over here too, you can see it blushing all the way along over the black dots. You see that? See it here? That tells you that you need to proceed with caution and be very careful when you mask off a fingerboard like this. Otherwise you're going to be right in the same place that we are with that Strat, where the whole thing needs to be stripped and refinished. We're going to show you how to do that too. So we're going to be doing a fret dress on this telly, but I wanted to show you the sort of fret wear pattern in this guitar. This guy's obviously playing the daylights out of this guitar. So there's the fret wear. Okay, so here's the rub. This is the same guy, his Ibanez guitar. I find it really interesting that, you know, you get the two guitars from one customer. You can see the path that this guy has worn in the frets. He's basically the same area of the fingerboard on both the telly and this Ibanez. It's kind of an interesting little study. Cheers.